This week, Military Collectors is back in Monteagle, Tennessee. We've got more great stuff to show you from the Sam Werner Military Museum. So much stuff, this is part 2 of Military Collectors this week.
3-1, ready to check. Roger that.
This week we're back in Monteagle, Tennessee. Military Collectors is back at the Sam Werner Military Museum here. And some of you all may recognize the vehicle that I'm leaning up against. Some may not. There weren't very many of these made. There's not many of them left out there. As many of you collectors may know, the M442 Mite was a Marine Corps lightweight aluminum body, and I've got an expert here, a guest that's going to be on our show. He's been on Military Collectors before, but this is Matt Fox, quarter-ton military parts in Chickamauga, Georgia. But this guy is going to talk to us about Bud's Mite passion and his collection.
Hey.
Matt, welcome back to the show today.
Good to have you back. Thanks.
You know, tell me about the Mite and the passion here that Bud had.
The Mite was a one-time use vehicle. I mean, you basically transported it to its position, you used it up. Before you left, you destroyed it. And there are only maybe 3,500, give or take, made of these things. And since they were so disposable, and being a Marine Corps Jeep, Marine Corps was rough on vehicles, and when they were done with them, they were done with them.
How big was the Mite to Bud? Just as a passion and as a
Bud wanted to be the king of Mites. Oh my gosh, he had so many of these things.
How many did he have? You know, walking around the yard, I mean, gosh, we saw Hulk after Hulk.
Oh, there's probably 60 left, but I mean, he had hundreds of them. I mean, he was, they got him out of Barstow, they got him out of Lejeune, they got him out of Anniston. He wanted to be the king of Mites, and he had this vision of being the king.
Well, you know, the parts that he had on, I mean, new old stock, and they're still here, and you guys have spent 8 years just trying to sort it all out, and you're not even close to being done.
We haven't made a dent in it. We have not made a dent in it.
Well, with the Mite collection, I mean, I know this is very unique and rare because it's an original
it's
camo.
Camouflage, yeah. You don't see them camouflage.
And this is a little longer version, the A1.
Yeah, this is the A1.
Marked the 5th Marines. I mean, tell me, is it a passion of yours as well?
I never have really been into Mites.
Yeah, really?
I really haven't been in the Mites, but you know, as the older surplus is drying up, you got to move to newer things, and there's a market out there for these because they're so rare, they're very collectible, and if there's a market, people need parts, and so if we can provide the parts for them, we will.
Well, I'm going to ask you, a vehicle like this to a collector, just walking up to somebody and says, okay, how much you want for it? What would it normally go today in today's market?
A totally restored one, the top dollar on a just absolute beauty, you're looking 15 to 16,000.
Right.
They don't bring the huge amounts that a lot of your World War II Jeeps and stuff like that do because they're just not, they just haven't taken off. There's so few out there, people don't really know much about them. It's kind of a unique little vehicle.
Wow.
Air-cooled engine, aluminum bodied, quarter elliptical suspension. Yeah, they're funny little vehicles.
Well, with all the parts that he had around and still the parts for you guys to uncover, I just think this is going to be the next thing that everybody's got to have out there. And you know, as a collector, you know what I'm talking about. You saw it here first on Military Collectors. And Matt,
yeah, man.
Keep collecting, keep restoring, keep building, and hey, keep everything open out there. And folks, when Military Collectors comes back, we're going to talk to a special friend and board member here at the Werner Military Museum that really was close to Bud, and I think you'll enjoy listening to what he had to say about his special collector friend.
If you are interested in preserving and collecting military vehicles, whether you're a military veteran or just have a love for military vehicles in general, then you may be interested in joining the Military Vehicle Preservation Association. The MVPA is dedicated to providing an international organization for military vehicle enthusiasts. For more information and all the benefits a member receives with joining the Military Vehicle Preservation Association, go online at mvpa.org.
Every soldier's training is the same, but their story is their own.
From the fields of Gettysburg to the tanks rolling across the sands of Kuwait, the story of the mounted soldier is a story of mobility, speed, and the historic power to shift the mighty tides of war. The National Armor and Cavalry Heritage Foundation is asking for your help in keeping the legacy of the United States Armor and Cavalry and telling the stories for many years to come.
I'm a little bit country.
Oh, and I'm a little bit rock and roll.
I'm a little bit of Memphis and Nashville.
With a little bit of Motown in my soul. I don't know if it's good or bad.
But I know I love it so.
With a little bit of country, and a little bit of rock and roll.
The all-new Chevy Silverado. It's a little bit country, and it's a little bit rock and roll.
For 50 years, Ranger Boats has been paying tribute to America's armed forces and their families, not only in the United States, but those men and women who serve all over the world. At Ranger Boats, we appreciate the dedication that these men and women do each and every day, protecting and preserving the very foundations of our freedom. Ranger Boats wants to give back to America's real heroes with our Operation Troop Salute program. For more information, visit rangerboats.com today.
Roger that.
We're here at the Sam Werner Military Museum, and I've got a very, very special guest, a lifelong friend, and actually grew up around Bud and his dad over in Tracy City, and that's Freddie Cunningham, and he's also a board member here of the Sam Werner Military Museum Foundation. Freddie, I want to welcome you to Military Collectors this week. But
thank you.
You know, I tell you, you've got a special story that you want to tell all these folks about this MB here.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the history behind this. This belonged to Bud and his dad, right?
Bud and his dad, and this is Jeep was hid for years, and I was over from 1971 up till Bud's passing, and every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evening, we'd be sitting in the living room eating popcorn, and Mr. Sam would say, "Bud, you turn that motor," and Bud would say, "No."
So you'd be turn the motor with the crank?
Yeah,
Okay.
turn the motor with the crank.
Yeah, just like that.
And like that, that's all it would take. And this went on for years, for as long as I can remember. That was a monthly thing that he would do to make sure this motor would not stick.
Well, in the chicken coop, why did he put it in there?
Hide it from somebody.
Really?
Keep from somebody finding it. And all it was showing is see, it's all original.
Cosmoline
up, the plugs and everything.
Oh my goodness.
And we call this the barn find.
Wow.
And it was hidden on Carl's Chicken House, and I never found it till we pulled it out of the trailer 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah. And that was about one of the stories that I could tell, but there's a lot more that I could tell, but it'd take a long time.
Well, Freddie, listen, and I want to say, folks, about Freddie here. Freddie is a cancer survivor. God bless you for all of that, and the good Lord has healed you, although you lost your leg.
Yes.
But you're still here as an active participant,
Yes.
and you know, I know Bud is looking down.
Oh yeah.
On you guys, of what you guys are doing here with his collection, and, and carrying on his legacy and his story.
That's what I want to do.
There you go.
I mean, I really want to carry on what he wanted us to do, and that's what I'm doing.
Well, hopefully folks will come here and see this. They'll come see you, and they can hear more stories.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And
there's some more stories I can tell about him and his dad and my grandfather. There's some pretty good ones.
well, I tell you what I'll do. When I come back, I'm going to bring some popcorn, and I'll bring a portable TV, and we'll come in on Sunday and tell stories.
Yeah, that's great.
There you go. Well, folks, listen, when Military Collectors comes back, we're going to have more great things to show you from the Werner Military Museum in Mite Eagle, Tennessee.
If you have missed any past episodes of Military Collectors, be sure to go online at militarycollectorstv.com. And you can see not only past episodes, but also read in-depth features on the people and their passion of their military collections.
Unforgettable memories begin the moment you pick up your first Browning. unmatched security, fire protection, and storage options, Browning will be with you through a lifetime, protecting your guns and all the cherished memories you make with them. Keep your Browning memories safe.
I'm a little bit country.
And I'm a little bit rock and roll.
I'm a little bit of Memphis and Nashville.
With a little bit of Motown in my soul. I don't know if it's good or bad.
But I know I love it so.
With a little bit of country, and a little bit of rock and roll.
The all-new Chevy Silverado. It's a little bit country, and it's a little bit rock and roll.
Take a moment to think about the food you buy and eat. Is it fresh? I mean really fresh. Or is it shipped from a grower hundreds or even thousands of miles away? Well, here in South Carolina, we celebrate fresh, locally grown food and unforgettable meals with family and friends. So, choose food that's rooted right here. Choose certified SC grown. It's a matter of taste.
Roger that.
Well, before we head on back over to the Sam Werner Military Museum in Monteagle, Tennessee, y'all write me all the time. You send me email notes. Bob, we'd love to see more restoration projects on military collectors. Well, I've got another one for you. And it happens to be one that I just acquired about 1.5 years ago. It was a 1942 Dodge WC-53 carryall. Now, again, if you're familiar with the Dodge WC series, you will know that a lot of them were made by Dodge back during the war. Some will estimate that there was over 600,000 Dodge vehicles made during World War II. Well, the WC-53 carryall was kind of a special deal. They had half-ton carryalls early in the war, and then in 1942, they come up with a 3/4 ton that was on the same frame as this WC-57 and the 54 ambulance behind me. They put it on a 3/4 ton frame, and I was lucky enough to acquire one of these about 1.5 years ago, and I've always wanted a carryall. And it is just one of those vehicles, again, between 6,000 and 7,000 were made. Other accounts, there may have been 8,000, but it was a particular vehicle that they wanted to carry command and staff, as well as general officers to use it as a staff car. Well, like the WC-57 and the 56 command cars, it became readily known as carrying somebody of prominence, and the enemy bombed them every time they saw them out on the road. So it probably was not one of those vehicles that was safe to ride in during the war. So they didn't make them, they stopped, and I was lucky enough to get a carryall. Now, a little bit of story about this one. It came from the southwestern desert area in California, so it was relatively rust-free. As you can see, once I got it, I put it on the trailer, and I had to carry it down to a friend of mine in Eustis, Florida, Mr. Lindsay Orr. And on another series that we do this season on military collectors, Lindsay is my go-to guy when it comes to doing paint and body work on these old Dodge vehicles. But this is going to be Lindsay's first crack at doing a Dodge WC-53 carryall, or actually, I guess, any Dodge WC-57 or 50 series truck. So, with that, this thing was in relatively complete assembly. Again, no rust. I had all the bells and whistles with it. An engine that was, well, it ran, but it was not the right engine for the truck, because these trucks originally came with a T214 engine. And here later in the restoration of all these military vehicles, that T214 Flathead 6 engine is one of those highly sought after. Not many of them still out there. There's a lot of them that are sitting in some of these old trucks. You might see them on the side of the road. Folks used them for logging vehicles back in the day, especially way out west, because a lot of these came from that desert environment where there wasn't a lot of rust, and that's the only reason that many of them survived. Mine, well, you might say that, well, why, Bob, did you do the paint and body work first? Well, sometimes you have to go with the guy that takes you to the dance, and Lindsay had an opening in his schedule, and doing the paint and body work, I had to get it done, so that's why I took it on down to his place. As you could see, the disassembly of this vehicle, it was relatively simple, except with a couple of exceptions. The wood in the back had to be all disassembled. The bolts had to be cut. All the glass was broken, so that had to all be replaced. All the window crank mechanisms, all the door mechanisms, all of that stuff had to be disassembled. Now, Lindsay took off a lot of the engine parts for me, and the old engine he sandblasted because I'm going to save it. But in a later episode of Military Collectors, we're going to talk to the folks down in Jacksonville, Florida, who actually are going to rebuild and do the T214 engine that I found from a friend of mine who actually owned my command car, okay? So I guess what I'm saying here is this family of collectors is a really small net, and there's a lot of guys who collect these vehicles who are known to others. They sell parts, they buy parts vehicles, they sell parts, and so the eye of that needle, not only is it small, but what goes around comes around, because a lot of these guys have done it for years, and you'll get to meet some of those guys on later episodes. Well, back with me now is Parker Lowndes. He is the chairman of the foundation here at the Werner Military Museum, and you know, Bud, he loved wheel vehicles, okay, and all that, but he also loved armor too. And so tell me about this row right here, because this is kind of a unique piece here.
All right, so we have three pieces here. The first one is an M5 Stuart tank. We are in the process of making it a static display. When we found it in his collection, as we saw earlier in one of the episodes, this had trees growing all up out of it, so it was in the woods. We had to cut all the trees out and get it moved over here. So we've sandblasted it and painted the outside to make it a static display. We're eventually going to try to go inside and restore it from the inside out, and then try to get it running eventually down the road.
Parker, let me ask you a question now. All of the armament, all the turret, all that was on here?
Everything's on there, just like you saw. Other than the engines, it still has the twin Cadillac engines in it. Everything was here and in place, just as you see it, other than not quite as pretty on the outside.
And this one is serial number?
It's serial number 961.
Oh,
so as we were,
so it was an early production.
So we were sandblasted and we found the serial number on it.
Wow.
And,
that
so
is
it's
awesome.
It is a neat piece.
Yeah, it is. Okay, now, and this one?
The next one here was a Greyhound. It's is M20 Ford Greyhound, and likewise it's it of course is a wheeled vehicle instead of a track vehicle, but it still has.
But it's armored.
It is armored, and Bud liked this one because he could get in and out of it a little easier. And then the one behind it is a 114 all aluminum armored scout car. And
now these were used heavily in Vietnam.
These were in Vietnam.
So was he fond of the Vietnam? Because I know in his collection there's a lot of 151 vehicles and that sort of thing, or did he care?
I think he was fond of anything that was OD green, to be perfectly honest with you. This particular one, you can walk around the back. When we started on it, it had about 16 or 18 inches of sand and leaves, and we've cleaned it out to try to make it a display model. And this one actually ran back in the 70s when he originally got it.
Wow. Okay, Parker, we moved from the 114 over here, Vietnam, and now let's take it back a step, okay? Kind of where it all started, huh? Right. And you got Hambo and the mule
That's
here.
right. So before, of course, all the armored pieces, the military had a lot of mules and horses. And matter of fact, Camp Forest down here, which was the local base in the early 40s, had 2,800 horses and mules. Even during the 1943 Tennessee maneuvers that they were doing, they had that many in stables down there. This is 1907 Studebaker. You can still see U.S. written here on the side.
Oh yeah.
Non-restored, but we're proud of going on back in history. And then also, as we start off in one of the other segments, we have a 1915 white. And as we talked about earlier, some of the old Liberty trucks from World War I came out and this one became a log truck up here, and was one of the things that we talked about early on with the Werner family going back to the sawmilling business and industry.
Well, now, are any of these still left on the property, you think?
There are a couple remnants of the old white truck still over there in the woods.
Wow. That's just unbelievable at this guy's collection.
Yeah. You can look on the inside of all the things that were in here.
Wow. I mean, it's just amazing that this survived. It really is.
Yes, it is.
You know, and of course, it's all right here. at the tribute to Sam's collection, and you all have done a tremendous job. So I would just have to tell you, thank you so much for showing us around on this here piece, because I will tell you folks, military collectors, we're out there looking for that unique collector, and these guys have kept Sam Bud Warner's collection alive right here in Monteagle, Tennessee. So again, log on to WarnerMilitaryMuseum.com or go to MilitaryCollectorsTV.com, and you can come up here and see this wonderful collection. And again, if you're a veteran, you need to come and stop by. We got more stuff to go look at.
Thank you, sir.
You just keep looking.
For 50 years, Ranger Boats has been paying tribute to America's armed forces and their families, not only in the United States, but those men and women who serve all over the world. At Ranger Boats, we appreciate the dedication that these men and women do each and every day, protecting and preserving the very foundations of our freedom. Ranger Boats wants to give back to America's real heroes with our Operation Troop Salute program. For more information, visit rangerboats.com today.
Every soldier's training is the same, but their story is their own. From the fields of Gettysburg to the tanks rolling across the sands of Kuwait, the story of the mounted soldier is a story of mobility, speed, and the historic power to shift the mighty tides of war. The National Armor and Cavalry Heritage Foundation is asking for your help in keeping the legacy of the United States Armor and Cavalry and telling the stories for many years to come. If you are interested in preserving and collecting military vehicles, whether you're a military veteran or just have a love for military vehicles in general, then you may be interested in joining the Military Vehicle Preservation Association. The MVPA is dedicated to providing an international organization for military vehicle enthusiasts. For more information and all the benefits a member receives with joining the Military Vehicle Preservation Association, go online at mvpa.org.
Roger that.
Well, welcome back to Military Collectors. I'm back here with Parker Lowndes. He's the chairman of the Sam Werner Military Museum Foundation here in Monteagle, Tennessee. And as we're doing an overview of this wonderful museum and tribute to Sam Bud Warner, you know, Parker, this week we've focused on some great things on the show, and of course even last week we saw where it all started, and we were at the compound. So I want to give the folks, it's hard to do justice to this collection in 30 minutes or even an hour or many hours. You could do a documentary, but as we walk and talk here, Sam's legacy is all right here. Plus there's more that you haven't even got out yet.
Right.
So let's kind of, what do you think Sam would want us to see as we close out show number 2 this week?
Okay, so in a quick summary of this, the museum is set up with basically World War II going down this aisle, Korea going across the back, Vietnam, and then in the Desert Storm. You see here beside us we have a Ford GTB. A lot of people know it as a Burma Jeep, but it's a bomb truck.
Yeah.
We go on into several Jeeps here, one a Navy Shore Patrol Jeep. We also have something that's fairly unique that we really like, and this is a chaplain's Jeep, complete with all of the communion set for going out and serving sacraments in the field. Along with all the manuals, we have a variety of different religious books that have been collected with this, and a pump organ so they can fold out and go play music. This Jeep is very unique. It actually has a graphed plotter in the back. There's a GPS of what we would know today, but this one is set up to keep up and track and make small plots that will lay over the top of existing maps. We have, of course, a command car here, and it's great because this came back from the Lend-Lease program out of Switzerland, along with some of the other vehicles that we've seen today. This is an MT Tug. There were 15 of these built. This happens to be serial number 6. As you spin on around the backside over here, you'll see the vehicles that were typically used during Korea time frame, and from the M38 up through the M38A1s. The big thing sitting in the corner is called High Helen. The Light Armored Division made 3 of those, and basically it's an M38A1 with adapters on it so they could try to have a vehicle that would track along with track vehicles as far as width of track and heights. Because if you were falling in 38A1, you were always falling off into one of the ruts on one side or the other. As we turn the corner, we have some Mites that were built for the Marine Corps.
And again, Bud's favorite, the Mite.
He had a lot of these. This was one of his favorite Jeeps. I think he tried the corner of the market on collecting them as well as collecting all the parts for them.
Okay, on this side?
Okay, on this side we have several pieces. This is the Sparrowhawk missile launcher without the upper structure on it. We're in the process of getting ready to restore it. We have 3 mules here, 2-wheel, 4-wheel steer, and we also have a diesel-powered one in the back, one of the few that I think that they converted over, trying to go with a new diesel engine in it. Across the way over here we have the series of M151s all the way up through all the different series, including hardtops, military, police. We have a couple Humvees in here. This high top hard one is one of the few that we've seen with that particular body style. And then the other one over here is one of the early first ones that came out for testing and to go through and see what, how the vehicle performed. There were a lot of changes. This particular one, they found out that it had a flaw where it would pop up and get the oil pan crossing over certain ditches.
Well, I tell you, Parker, it is a beautiful facility, okay? And I know as a tribute to Bud, you guys are going to keep this collection alive for history. The kids that come in here, the educational benefits and values, that's really what we're trying to do as well with you. And so, Godspeed. I will tell you, I know Bud's looking at all of you all, and he has to be proud.
Well, thank you.
And so with that, folks, I will tell you, on Military Collectors, we're always trying to bring the unique, and Parker has done that with all of his foundation here in Monteagle, Tennessee. If you're headed to Nashville, you're on I-24, stop on in. It's not very far from Chattanooga. Log on to militarycollectorstv.com. You can also go to their website there, or you can log on to WernerMilitaryMuseum.com. Come on up here. It is worth the time to stop. Bring the kids, bring the family. Okay, if you're a veteran out there, come on up, because I will tell you, you'll find something here that's unique for you. Like me, there are some of these things that I have put a lot of butt time in, okay, and I know you will as well. We'll see you next week on another episode of Military Collectors.